Hello, good evening. Thank you for tuning in to the Cryptid Paranormal Podcast. I'm your host, Goddard. Tonight we have Steve Kauffman. 1975, he saw a Sasquatch, and here tonight he's going to tell us all about it. Please join me in welcoming him. Good evening, Steve. How you doing?
Doing good, partner. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. So,
Alrighty.
fellow
All right.
Sasquatch witness, 1975. So tell us what were you doing in 1975 that brought Squatch in your life?
Well, uh, I like the way that's put. Um, I was in the military back in 1975. I was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. And I came down from Fort Benning, Georgia. Had a girlfriend a girl I met, and we went ahead and hit it off. And she lived on a family farm outside of Camden, Arkansas, about 10, 12 miles outside of Camden, Arkansas. And back then in 75, I don't know how Camden is now, but back then it was a small town and a very small country town. And they lived outside of that farm. It's a 250-acre farm, set out by itself, way out there in the woods. And anyone who knows how thick the woods are in Arkansas, it is thick. And so Louisiana just blends right into Arkansas right there. And then, poof, you have all these woods and, hills and lakes and creeks and everything else, swamps and everything. Well, every weekend I go up there. I get off post and go up there and I, be with her and help her daddy out. Her daddy, they have that farm. I love working cattle. I like doing that kind of thing. So I help work his cattle, help him build fence, help him do repairs around the farm. And it was my getaway on the weekends because on post in the military, I don't know how it is now, but back then in the Army, if you on weekends when you're off, if you're on post and they need detail, they're coming to get you. So I made myself scarce. Here I'm going to Arkansas, about a 4.5 hour drive. So this one particular Friday night, back in June of 75, went there, got there. We just finished supper. Her granny was the cook. My goodness, can she cook? And that gal was probably close to 70 years old back then. And I mean, just good old country cooking ruined me because in the military, when you go in post and you're over there at the mess hall, you get biscuits you can throw against the wall and crack the concrete. When we get a home cooked meal, son, it's on. We're on it. And but anyway, so we were hunkered down in the den, me and her daddy, her mama, and two brothers, and we're watching TV in the den. Again, about 9:30 at night. Granny was in the kitchen washing dishes. This is an old country farmhouse. I mean, you walk through it, crick, crick, crick. I mean, you hear, the wood cricking. It's up on pilings, jacked up because they're close to a river. And every once in a while it overflows. So they go ahead and have their house jacked up for that reason. And the house is probably 100 years old, been in their family for years. Any case, I'm just trying to give you the visual of this. What I'm trying to do is, I guess it's the old law enforcement in me, being retired law enforcement. We just base everything on facts and details. That's how we do it. So it stuck with me. So forgive me if I get too detailed here. That's just habit over the years of been working as a cop and law enforcement. Any case, the house is old, crickety, and everything else. Granny's in the kitchen. There's a long hallway going down from the farm. Or, I'm sorry, from the den we were in. And there's rifles and shotguns on racks all the way down this hallway because him and his sons were avid hunters, which I was too. So I love that. Fit right in. Any case, Granny screams. And I'm talking about bloody murder scream. Well, we all jump, run down the hallway to see about her. And I was first one there, got there, turned the corner, got in the kitchen, and I almost cut a flip over her. She was sitting on her hind end right there on the kitchen floor, and she's pointing at the window over the sink. And she was yelling, "I've seen it again, I've seen it again." And so in my military mind, I'm thinking she saw an intruder, some fella trying to break in the house. So her daddy says, arm up. We all went armed up on shotguns and rifles off the racks, went out the back door towards the pasture. Now, her mama and also my girlfriend's mama and her stayed inside the house tending to Granny because she was pretty shook up. Evidently, her family knew what she's seen in that window. It wasn't the first time, because hence why Granny said, "I've seen it again." Okay, everyone knew what we were going after except for me. I was left in the dark. Old Steve Marino wasn't told anything. I was told, "Come on, follow, let's go." Military soldier, guess what? I'm gonna follow. There I went. I had a 12 gauge pump, double aught buck. Her daddy had a 410, number one. The two brothers went to the right. We went to the left because we split up in teams, covering more ground that way. 250-acre farms, a lot of land to cover. Now, I remember this like it was yesterday, even though it was 50 years ago. And I told him my age, I guess, didn't I? I was a 19-year-old soldier. Now I'm 68, so man, what a difference, right? My goodness, my hair ain't turned gray, done fell out. So, any case, yeah, that's the way it is, man. You get older. But it was a traumatic experience for me. And a traumatic experience stays with you for the rest of your life. 50 years, 60 years, 75 years, to you're 100 years old or older. You remember every detail. It's just the way the mind works. And so I remember this like it was yesterday, every single detail. So what I'm doing is carrying you through it and letting you see through my eyes and your viewers through my eyes what we saw that evening. Okay, that night. Again, 9:30 at night. It was a very bright moon night. Very bright. You know how it gets whenever it's so bright, it's like daylight outside. I mean, you can see 100 yards away. And that's exactly what kind of night it was. I remember coming out down the stairs out the back door. I remember looking across the pasture. And at the far end of the pasture was another cattle gate back there. And it was another fence back there that went on to their garden. That was their huge garden area. They used to go ahead and grow their plants and, their garden, groceries, and everything else to go ahead and sell in Camden. That was their business. But the cattle were all hunkered up at the far end next to that cattle gate over there. And they were cutting up. And if you know anything about cattle, when they're hunkered up and cutting up, it's a sign there's an intruder or a predator about. And that could have been anything. Okay, bobcat, panther, coyote, anything. So that didn't really rattle me at all. I'm used to seeing that. What did get my attention pretty quick was his 3 blue tick hounds he had. He had 3 hunting dogs, and they were all under the porch whining. And when I say whining, I'm talking about they were scared to death. Something had spooked them full-grown blue ticks. Now, these critters here are trained to treat or trained to run. Look, if that had been an intruder, they've been cutting up through the woods. You'd hear them a mile away cutting up. But they were under the porch whining. That kind of sent my heart down to my feet because I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed, but I ain't the dullest neither. Something's up. This ain't no normal intruder. Okay. So now I got it in my mind, something's happening. So I'm saying, Bobby, I said, look, man, what about dogs? He said, don't worry about dogs. Stay behind me. So we're going towards the corner post. Now, there's a corner post right here. It's a dividing fence. He wanted a dividing fence from the pasture to the 50-acre swamp he had because he didn't want his cattle going off in there, wandering off and getting bogged down, stuck, and everything else. It was a pretty bad little swamp right there. So we built a fence right there earlier, and it was 4-foot cattle panel with a switch of barbed wire. So it's about 5 foot high. So we're walking towards that corner post right there, the dividing fence, and about 10 foot from it. And all of a sudden, in that thicket over the fence in the swamp side, it went and turning and burning. I mean, it's like a 2,000-pound rhino just crunching dry leaves, breaking limbs, cracking, just making a racket. And we're ready now. we're ready arms right now, okay, with our weapons, and it's turning and burning. And then all of a sudden, this is the point, I guess, the pivot point in my life, really, to tell you the truth, as a 19-year-old soldier. This is the pivot point in my life that changed everything, challenged everything I was ever taught in public school to believe existed in our world. Came to a sudden, complete halt right there, right now. This thing, now you can call it what you want. You can call it a Bigfoot, Sasquatch. You can call it a clown. I mean, whatever you want to call it. Because I didn't have a categorized for it myself, because back in 75, we didn't know what Bigfoot was. That wasn't even talked about. You never heard of it. If you said Bigfoot back in 75, someone thought you was talking about some fella that had elephantitis in his feet. And he had big feet from a disease. They don't know what you're talking about. So, back then it was, I mean, so we good God. So this thing jumps the fence. Now, right in front of us, this isn't 100 yards away. We measured it the next morning. We did a recon and measured everything back to the point of origin and everything where it jumped the fence. And it was 25 foot from when we were standing over there on this side of the fence post to where this creature landed in the pasture. And this thing jumps the fence, lands in the pasture. It squatted down now when it landed, and it stood up. Now, I'm slowing this down for you, so in your viewers, so you guys can get the gist of what I'm seeing, what I was looking at, me and her daddy. It stood up. It looked like it took forever to stand up. This all happened in a matter of 20, 25 seconds. It was flank of us now. Okay, important understanding there. It was flank of us. It wasn't facing right towards us. It wasn't facing away from us. It was flank of us. So we're looking at its right side when it stood up. Basically, it jumped over that fence, landed right there in the same position, just stood up. Okay, when it stood up, it had to have been at least 8, maybe 9 foot tall. It had to have been at least 700 or 800 pounds. We're talking about a big feller here, real big, healthy feller. Now, I'm going to tell you what I was thinking, okay? In my mind, my military mind, I'm thinking, this is a bear, right? Well, no. Arkansas doesn't have grizzlies. And I've seen grizzlies before. I've seen black bear. They can stand up like a man. They really can. And they can walk like a man, too. I've seen them do it. But this thing had characteristics that a bear doesn't have. And it did things a bear cannot do. For instance, bear has a snout. This thing didn't have a snout. We saw its profile. It's flank of us. In the moonlight, it had a man's profile. A bear's got sloped shoulders. This thing had broad, massive shoulders. I mean, it was just wide. It was massive. It was thick. Huge arms, and the hands hung down to its knees. Now, big old hands. Bear don't have hands. So all these characteristics are popping out right here. And I'm still thinking bear because my mind can't rationalize what I'm looking at. I'm trying to, and I'm trying to take it in, but I can't. Well, that time, bam, it goes ahead and it bolts and it runs away from us. It runs away from us, not towards the cattle at the other end of the pasture. It runs across the pasture away from us and the cattle, goes towards the other cattle gate. We had built that not too long before, and it ran across that pasture, 100 yards, bam, like a track star on 2 feet. Now, we're watching this thing run. Never did it fall to all fours that we saw it. It was running on 2 feet, like a huge, huge man or creature. I don't know what you would call it, covered in hair. Well, it goes through the cattle gate and it busted through the cattle gate. It ran right through it. Now, why would it jump this fence over here and run through that cattle gate? The $1,000,000 question. I don't know. My personal belief on that is it was a warning to us. Don't follow me. Don't follow me. Because after it went through that cattle gate and busted through it, it let out a roar. I mean, massive roar. It started like a panther, like a woman screaming, and it ended like a bassy, guttural elephant or lion, if that makes sense. It
Yeah.
just rattled through the woods, bounced off my chest. And I mean, talking about the scariest roar I've ever heard. I live out here in the woods in Louisiana. I've been here 40 some odd years in the deep woods of Louisiana. It's dang near 7 miles out my back door to the next house to the woods. And I've heard all kind of critters out here. I mean, I got deer walking through my front yard. I've got squirrels. I got hogs, everything else, and I've heard every creature you can imagine in these woods. I've never, ever heard anything like this. Man, look, I have served in other countries in the military, overseas. I've been to Panama. I've been to Europe. I've been to Korea. Uncle Sam sent me everywhere. I've been all over the place. I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fort Stewart, Georgia. I've been to Fort Polk, Louisiana. I've been TDY all over the United States, all on several missions. Panama. I've been everywhere. I've never heard what I heard that night, that creature. Well, after it went through that cattle gate and it broke through it, we froze in our tracks and it roared. About that time, here come our brothers around the other side of the house. They were yelling, "Hey, did you hear that? Did you hear that?" Did you hear it? We done seen it. Y'all seen it? Yeah, we seen it. Well, man, adrenaline was going. My heart was going like this, son. It was like if that was my shirt, it'd been going like that. I was like, oh man, what did I just see? What did I just look at? And I asked Bobby, I said, look, what is that thing? I don't know. It comes around every once in a while and it looks in the window at Granny. Maybe it's curious that we're cooking. Who knows? Don't know. He said it's never tried to break in the house. It's never tried to hurt anybody. Going that cattle gate's the only damage it ever done. Uh, well, we sat there. We had to chill out. We had to go ahead and get our minds right. And after that, it's kind of slowed down a little bit. Went ahead and I got her oldest brother. He's about 6'4" for scale. Stand under the kitchen window, raise his arm up, fingertip, okay, high as he can. 6'4" fingertip. I figure he's about reaching up about 7 foot. Safe to say. And he can barely touch the bottom rim of that kitchen window, which put it in perspective, it had to have been at least 8 foot or 9 foot tall to look in that window at Granny. So now we got a comparison, a ratio of the size or, the height of this thing. So now we go back in the house. By this time, Granny has calmed down some. We got inside there. We sat in the kitchen table, sat down there. Coffee pot was on all night long. You hear me? We weren't. Look, there was no sleeping going on, son. We were too wired. It was like, man, look. It was just. I wasn't even tired. I couldn't sleep if I wanted to. I was too wired. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, what we just saw. What we see? What is this thing? No one's got an answer. All I know is it comes around every once in a while. Well, so we sat there. Questions were brought up. Bobby, why don't you call wildlife and fisheries, game wardens? They know how to deal with something like this. No, absolutely not. Look, he went ahead and he looked at me and his two sons, and he put his finger in our face. And he said, let me tell y'all what, I don't want anyone talking about this. You understand me? Nobody. Our livelihood is selling our produce over there in Camden. That's how we make our living. That's our livelihood. If the word got out, we have something like this running around our farm, it would ruin our reputation in town. It'd ruin our business. It'd ruin our standing in our church. So hey, look, I respected that as a soldier. I said, yes, sir. Don't worry about that. My lips are sealed. His sons, of course, they knew better to go ahead and say anything. So we're all in agreement. Don't worry about that. We ain't talking about nothing. And so the whole night we sat there trying to put together a plan of action, trying to figure out what this thing was, but no one had an answer. Back then, Understand, this is back before computers. This is back before cell phones. None of that. A matter of fact, the TV that was in their den had 3 channels on it. Didn't have cable. Didn't have satellite back then. It didn't exist. So 3 channels, and they're all, fuzzy and that kind of stuff. I mean, so that was it. It was rabbit ears and the antenna outside. You turn. That's what we had back then. There was no technology in that day. We had nothing to go ahead and really compare things to or anything else. Next morning, first daylight. Oh, before, let me back up a minute. So I did ask Granny. I said, Granny, look, I said, you seen this creature's face in the window? She said several times. It looks in. And, evidently it's curious about her cooking, whatever she's doing. I said, we've seen its body. We've seen its figure. We've seen its form. We've seen its profile. We never saw its face straight on. Now, I know it's got a man's profile, but can you describe its face to me? And she said, oh, yeah, I can describe its face real well. It almost filled up that kitchen window. That's how big it was. Said it was like a grayish type of skin, rough looking skin, had hair all around it, but not on the face, if that makes sense. It had a big man's nose. It had human teeth. Didn't have fangs. It had human teeth, big human teeth. And this is what got me, though. She said it had glowing red eyes. And I said, glowing red eyes. And she was serious heart attack. She said, I'm telling you, as red and glowing as the tail lights on Bobby Ray's pickup truck. I said, yes, ma'am. So I never heard that before. That's, I don't know how would you even call that red eyes. So I was, but hey, I knew what I seen. I didn't doubt her. I knew what I seen out there. So you know what? I'm sure she's telling the truth. Well, daylight come. We decided to pull a recon. So we went out there, and this time we're all huddled together. We ain't separating in teams. We're all together. I mean, what if this thing pops out again? We don't know. Went back to the point of origin and went there where it jumped the fence. Took our measurements where we were at to where it landed in the fence. We saw the prints right there when it landed inside the pasture. 25 foot. We went ahead and found the prints across the pasture. Man, these prints, look, I can put heel to toe of my feet in one print. Now, my toes of my right foot be going over, but you get the gist of it right there, about 17 to 18 inches long. Big feet. We went on down, tracked it across there, came to the cattle gate. Here's where it really gets, goes to an e-ticket attraction right here. The cattle gate was shredded. Now, some people might think, well, going through a cattle gate, but this was not made of balsa wood or 1x2s. This was 4 planks, 2x6 planks of oak. You know how powerful, strong oak is, how heavy oak wood is. You got 4 planks right there. This thing shredded it like a D9 dozer full throttle. I'm talking about just shredded it. The power and force to do something like that. So now we got chills on this, what we're seeing. Now we're starting to see the devastation of the power of this thing. Well, we noticed also to the right of us, the corner post, which was a cut down telephone pole. And it was sunk down about 6 foot in the ground. It was laid over. It wasn't broke. It didn't snap it. It laid it over. It laid it over from being built in the ground that deep on the ground, down the fence. That's a tremendous amount of force to do something like that. Then we noticed down, the 2 brothers noticed down from the cattle gate was a squeeze chute where we used to run the cattle through there. You lock them down, you can go ahead and clip their horns, tag them, whatever you want to do with them. Work your cattle. The squeeze chute was all bent up. That's iron bars right there, son. Bent up. But the force of this thing doing this damage is like, what? So my mind's just turning and burning. And I'm still trying to figure out what I seen. My mind's wanting to say bear, but it wasn't a bear. What was it? Everything I was taught to believe existed in this world. Now I'm wondering, I think I'm lied to. I was lied to. This not supposed to exist, but it's here. We've seen it in our face. Well, any case, so now we're just, I'm beside myself. I can't doubt what I saw. So went back to post, kept my mouth shut, didn't talk about it. So I went back on weekends after that, several weekends after that. We never talked about it when we went back there. It was never brought up. Never saw it again on the weekends I was there. Did it come around on the weekdays I wasn't? I don't know. They didn't tell me, and I didn't ask. Okay. But I just know the several weekends afterwards, never saw it. But it was on our mind. I promise you that. It was on my mind every night. And of course, after that, a few months later, I went ahead and got PCS overseas. Went overseas, came back, went overseas again, came back, and went ahead and finally, I went ahead and ETS, and the process out of Fort Jackson. I'm sorry, yeah, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. No, Fort Polk, Louisiana. Fort Polk, Louisiana, in 1981. And ETS, military is full of little acronyms there. ETS is Interior Service. And I did my 6 years, re-upped one time in 6 years, and then I was done, ready to get back stateside again. Funny thing was, when I came back stateside, I left in 76 to go overseas. When I came back, turned the TV set on, and all of a sudden, I didn't know what HBO was. They didn't have it overseas. So I turned on, I see naked people walking on the TV. I said, "What in the world happened while I was gone?" So yeah, HBO came out, and I said, "What is that?" So yeah, I mean, it was a shocker to me. But anyway, so in '81, things were just a little bit different. And so came out and met my wife. Now we got married in '84. Moved out here in the woods out here, and we've been here ever since. So and I love it out here. We live behind her mama's house, about 500 foot. Well, then her mama passed away, of course, and we have the land now and everything. So and it's just desolate, but love it. Wouldn't trade it in for the world. Love it. But anyway, so shortly after I came out of the military, went ahead and started my career in law enforcement. Went ahead and I retired here a few years ago. Thank the Lord. Oh man. And so it's been something, but it's been a blessing. I'm a disabled vet, so I came back and had a fight with the VA. We always I'll tell you this, and any veteran will tell you this: the VA is not the vet's friend. It's crazy how the VA is. Anyway, so after I retired, shortly after that, went ahead. I was hunting with my wife's uncle, he's my best friend. I call him Uncle Lewis. He was like my own uncle. We were like best buddies, though. We went everywhere. We hunted everywhere. Squirrel hunted, deer hunted, hog hunted, everything. All through these woods out here. And he was a short feller, but he was just, I mean, he was a go-getter, hardcore. Love him to death. Well, I decided, we had hunted all these areas here. I said one day, I said, Uncle Lewis, I said, I have to go ahead. And I understand, I still never told my story to anybody. My wife didn't know. My sons didn't know. No one knew it. All right. So I said, Uncle Lewis, I said, how about going to Anacoca Swamp, which is about 12 miles from here? It's rough terrain, rough area. And, but I wanted to see if he would go ahead and go. I mean, as old as he was at the time, he was about 76, 75, 76. And he said, man, the terrain, he said, no, that ain't no problem for me. You know me, I can walk anywhere. I said, yes, sir, I understand that. I was kind of joking with you, but you want to go hunting over there? He said, no, I won't go hunting over there again. I ain't been there since the 50s. I said, really? He said, yeah, I ain't going back. And he said, don't ask me why. Well, you know what I did? I asked why. I'm a curious feller, you know. So he said, you wouldn't believe if I told you. And I ain't told no one. I ain't told my family. I ain't told your wife, my niece, nobody. You'll think I'm crazy and you'd never want to hunt with me again. And I said, Uncle Lewis, that ain't going to happen. Now I'm curious. Now in my head is going, hey, you know what? He's seen something. He's seen something. And so we shared stories. That's the first time I came out with mine. And it was like a weight off my chest. After all them years of keeping it bottled inside me, a weight was lifted off me. I felt like I lost 30 pounds. And he looked at me and he had tears in his eyes. He said, I guess I ain't crazy. And I said, Uncle Lewis, I promise you ain't crazy, son. And what he had seen, and when he told me his story, back in the 50s, him and another feller, which I knew very well, name was Milton Hickenbottom, lived across the road. He's passed away now, along with Uncle Lewis, but I hunted with his sons, Ricky and Brian, for years. And they were in the 50s, they grew up together. They rode horses out there to Anacoca Swamp. And they were going squirrel hunting one morning. They got out there on the creek and they're up there under the trees. And, when you're squirrel hunting, you get out there at dark and you wait for daybreak. When daybreak comes, look for them limbs to go bouncing and you go ahead and start getting them. Well, he said it just started getting where, you can kind of make out shapes, not light yet, but getting, where you can make out shapes around you. And he noticed right across the creek on a white sandbar, it was a big old tree, which is unusual for a sandbar. And, but he didn't think of it. He didn't think a thing of it, and as it got lighter and the light progressed on where he can start making out really good things. And he seen that tree and he showed Milton. He said, hey, that's out of place. It's no limbs or nothing else, just standing straight on this white sandbar. And they're looking at it and they're looking at it, studying this thing, trying to figure out what it is. And all of a sudden it reared back like this. And he said it let out a big old massive beller. And when it did that, he said it scared him so bad his hat almost come off his head. He said, what in the world? So it turned around, grabbed a hold of a limb coming off the bluff, and it walked up the hill, and it was gone. Well, they waited a while because he told me Mama didn't raise no fool there. He wasn't going to go out there and chase this thing, whatever it was. It was huge. And I didn't blame them. They waited a while. They went across the creek. It was shallow, and they got over there. And he said they looked up at that limb, about 12 foot in the air off that bluff that it grabbed, which meant it had to have been at least 10 foot tall, whatever it was. And he said he just, covered in hair and everything. Well, so he said, so you've seen this thing in Arkansas. I've seen this thing here. Meaning there's got to be more than one. And I said, I reckon, so now I'm just, what? So then it was shortly after that now that I came out with my story, I was over my mother-in-law's house, and we went ahead, and my wife's there, my kids are there, and everything else. And my mother-in-law, we sat there, and I said, look, I'm gonna tell y'all something. And I told them what I seen in Arkansas, 75. And my sister-in-law, her husband, he a real nice fellow, but businessman. I'm talking about 100% business, son. He owns a huge construction company. They travel all over the country building malls and hospitals and everything else. And he said, Steve, can I talk to you on the porch? I said, sure. So we went out there and sat in the porch with a cup of coffee. And he looked at me. He said, I'm going to tell you something, son. He said, no one knows this. I'm a business owner. I can't afford for the word to get out, but I'm going to tell you this. And I said, hey, Giles. I said, hey, that's fine. You know my story. Well, he went ahead and told me what he seen. And he seen something about 15 miles from here, Old River Dam, which I've fished there before. And that's a boggy place right there. It ties into the Sabine River. But the creek goes down. I mean, it's nothing but bog and swamp, thick, thick, thick. There's all kind of critters out there. You know what's out there, right? So, and it goes on down for a few miles and it ties into the Sabine River. And he said one night he seen something out there, didn't know what it was, covered in hair, about 8, 9 foot tall. He said it scared the fire out of him and it ran off. Now, this is at 2 in the morning. Out there in the swamp, way deep out there, way deep out there. They were on a boat going out there in a pirogue. We call pirogues here in Louisiana. And they got out there, and he said they saw that thing on that bluff up there, and he said all of a sudden they turned about face and they was gone, son. They left the country. He said, I don't know what that is, but it was huge. It was bigger than me. And old Giles was a big old boy. He said it's bigger than me, and it's covered in hair. And I know I ain't fooling with that. And so if that was a feller in a suit at 2 a.m. out there in the middle of that swamp out there with the gators and the snakes, I don't. At 120 degrees, 120 degrees humidity, I don't think so. In a hot suit like that, waiting for someone to come by, hopefully at 2 a.m. No, that
Yeah.
was a creature. I don't know what it was. So anyway, that just blew him away. Well, so all of a sudden now I'm hearing stories from people I know personally. I've known for years that never said a thing. Of course, I didn't either until I came out with mine. But now they're coming out with theirs. So I'm starting to see the power of, as I tell my story, it's helping others to come forward with theirs. Now, I started getting asked to go do these podcasts, and one podcast led to another podcast, and I got on a mission. My mission is to help as many people as possible feel comfortable about coming out with their encounters. I did one for Sasquatch theory. It was about 4 or 5 months after that Miguel called me. He runs the podcast, and he called me up. He said, "Steve, when's the last time you checked your episode?" I said, "I just went back time after I did it, and that was it." He said, "Might want to check it. You got buku messages, son, and you wouldn't believe how many views you got in just 4 or 5 months." And so I'm thinking, 100 views or something, maybe. I'm hoping, at least 100 people, can hear it and go ahead and come forward with theirs. So I went on there, and my goodness, it had 249,000 views in just a few months. And the messages, what? So I started answering these people, and thank you so much for sharing your story. It helped me so much to come forward with mine. I thought I was the only one that kept it inside all these years. Now you helped me come forward with mine. And I mean, I saw the chain reaction it was causing. So I told Miguel, I said, you know what? He said, man, you need to go ahead and share this story over and over again in other podcasts too. He said, man, people are coming out with theirs now. And he started getting other people call him and say, man, look, so I said, well, I'm on a mission now, son. Law enforcement, our career is based on helping people. Now I'm able to help people come forward with theirs. So it was a therapy for me, but it was a therapy for them too. And it's a blessing for me to be able to help others do it. So, I said, man, look, at first I was like, well, I'll just do 1 or 2 podcasts. That's all I need to do. But now It's like people are telling me you need to do podcasts all over because people need to hear this and come forward. They need to hear your story and know how long you kept it inside. So if they had an encounter, it'll encourage them to come forward with theirs. So that's what I started doing. And I encourage everybody. I don't care how long they've kept their story inside of them. I kept mine for almost 50 years. 50 years. And now, I'm able to go ahead and help others come out with theirs. If I'd have had a sense God gave a goose, I came out years ago. But hindsight, right? But people are afraid of getting laughed at. They're afraid of going ahead and getting called crazy or something like that. Like I told you earlier, I didn't believe in these things a second before I saw it. I didn't believe in it. I laughed at folks who said they did. A second after I saw it, I'll argue anyone on the ground that tells me they don't exist. I'm telling you right now, these things are real. What they are, look, I'm going to tell you what, I don't know. I don't know enough about them to make a statement that what they are. I don't know. I just know they're real. They exist. Now, let me tell you this. So my son tells me, my oldest son, he tells me, he said, look, he plays in a band down. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee. And so he was down here and he said, Pop, he said, look, there's a Bigfoot museum in Arkansas, other side of Shreveport. I said, really? He said, yeah, let's go. So we packed up and went, and it's over there in Falk, over there. And we went there and walked through it and looked, and it was really, really, really neat. I really enjoyed it. Well, I met the owner. So he come out, we talked, and I told him my encounter, and he told me, wow, it's amazing. He said, look, I've never seen one before, he said, but he said, I've heard them and I've recorded them in the swamp. And he let me hear him. Boy, it just rattled my cage. Here's a picture right here in front of that museum of me standing next to the statue. That was in front of the museum. Now, to give you and your viewer scale of what I seen that night, what that statue is a munchkin compared to what we saw. At least a foot taller than that statue and much, much more massive and broader than that statue right there. I'm talking about what do you and what do you put in your mind? I mean, what do you go ahead and conceive you're looking at? And it goes against everything you were taught exists in this world in public school. So when I seen this, I told him my encounter, and he told me, he said, man, he said, I'm gonna tell you something, son. He said, you know how far Camden is from here? And I said, no, sir. He said, right down the road. He said a few miles down the road. He said, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't doubt, because you saw this in 75. In 71 is when a lot of the sightings were happening here in Falk, in Boggy Creek area. And he said, just a few years apart. I would not doubt, he said, that what you seen on that farm down the road there was the same creature. Now, I'm not saying it was. I don't know. It may have been. Maybe it was another completely different creature. I don't know. That was his put in right there, which he could be right. I don't know. Um, I didn't see what was at Boggy Creek so I don't know. But these things migrate. I'm sure they do to a certain extent. A little bit I've studied about them. I know there's lots of sightings in the area out here. Lots of sightings in the Sabine River. Lots of sightings. A year ago, the mayor of the town, Louisiana, which is about 45 miles here north of me, called FR. He had to go ahead and investigate all the farmers I've ever seen. They're seeing them out there. So even one of the judges seeing her back door. So they went out and did investigations. This area, you're on the, almost 700,000 acres, if not more. And that's a lot of acres. And I mean, there's been buku sightings out there of these creatures out throughout Kisatchie. Lots of sightings out there. And so all over Louisiana, there's been sightings. And there's just, I mean, they call them, as a matter of fact, they've been seen so much down in South Louisiana, they call them coneheads. That's what they call them. The old country folks out there and the Cajuns call them coneheads because they have a cone-shaped head. And they're seen all the time. And so, I mean, you got Honey Island Swamp Monster, they call it out there. They got, well, of course, here in Louisiana, we got what's called the Rougarou, which is, there's so many sightings out here. I've never seen one out here in Louisiana. I've hunted these woods for 40 some odd years. I've never seen what I've seen in Arkansas out here. I haven't. Now, other folks have. Some I've told you about live in my vicinity. I've never seen one out here. I've hunted these woods everywhere. I was asked in one podcast, they asked me, well, look, does it ever hit you in the mind and the head when you go hunting? You go out there deer hunting and such. What if you see one? I said, every single time I go hunting, it's on my mind. Every single time. What if I see one again? And I've been asked, well, you almost 7 miles at your back door to the next house to that woods and swamp. Why don't you do some tree knocks? I said, man, hold up. Let me tell you something. If you didn't get anything out of my story, get this. I did not want to see what I saw back in June of 75 in Arkansas. I didn't want to see it. I wasn't looking for one. I didn't believe they existed. I didn't want nothing to do with one. And I seen one, and I don't want to see one again. I really don't. I don't mind studying them on books, this and that, and everything else, or a video. But when it comes down to seeing one again, not this young chicken, no sir. I won't do it. I don't want to see one again. That was too close. Now, if I see one 100 yards away, maybe. All right. 25 foot too close for comfort for me. But I've heard things out in these woods. I don't know. I mean, if it was or not, can't tell you. Last year I was hunting. I hunt about 275 yards behind my house back here in the woods. And my wife was sitting here in the house. It was getting close to dark. And she heard something out the back door in the woods going whoop, whoop, whoop. Well, we're not used to hearing that kind of thing out here. Well, I heard it because it echoed through the woods. I heard it on my stand. So I come off my stand and I come back to the house and she told me, she goes, I heard this sound I never heard before. I said, I heard it when I was on my stand. And she said, what do you think it is? I said, I don't know. Now, was it one? No, I'm not going to say it was a Bigfoot. I don't know what it was. And it could have been something else. I don't know. I'm not going to say what it was. I don't know. But that's, one of them strange things. But so this state is full. Texas is full of sightings. Louisiana, full of sightings. And I mean, I meet people all the time now that come out and, hey, man, look, I believe in these things. I do. My wife made me this shirt right here, so I wear. And you'd be surprised when the people that stop me in the Walmart parking lot in the Ritter and they say, hey, you seen one too? I said, you seen one? And, yeah, I believe in them. So I'm telling you, there's I'm on a mission to help people come out with their stories. You know how many times I wanted to come out with mine, but never did? And the pressure that was built up inside me for holding it in all them years. So it's not good. It's not healthy. I really want to encourage anybody, even in law enforcement, even military, or just any walk of life. You've seen something like this, get it off your chest and come forward. Like I said, hindsight for me, I wish I'd have come out and said it, told it years ago. But look, I'm going to shut up real quickly. You ask some questions. How about that?
So I'm curious. During your sighting, did you or your girlfriend's brother's dad or anything? Did you guys hear any tree knocks? Did you smell anything unusual?
We didn't hear any tree knocks. We did smell something. Didn't know what it was. Now it could have been the dogs under the porch. I don't know. But we did smell something pretty foul as we were approaching. We were between the house and the fence post right there. That swamp was. Jumped up whatever we jumped up. That went, that jumped that fence. I don't know what that smell was. Like I said, I'm not going to say it was the creature. I'm not going to say it was dogs. It might have been. I don't know. It was something foul. So, and
So,
uh, I remember Giles, my brother-in-law, told you about who saw one down here. He told me when he came up on that thing up there in the swamp, he said it had a very foul odor. So, you know,
I believe
could
it.
be.
I mean, especially if we're talking 120 degrees humidity. I mean, anything's going to be sweating out there.
Out here in
So,
Louisiana, our humidity is high. Yeah. When you're talking
with
100
that
degrees
said,
out there, yeah.
oh yeah, I was curious too because you had mentioned that the swamps out there. How do you think one of these things would do against an alligator?
Well, gators are pretty powerful. Uh, but these creatures, if they're like the one I've seen in Arkansas, like I said, I've never seen one out here. They're like the ones in Arkansas, huge, massive, like it is. Uh, I believe they'd probably rip an alligator in half. I bet they can go ahead and just rip them jaws like that. I would think. I would think. And look, if you can go ahead and run through 4 2x6 green oak boards and shatter them like balsa wood, you the man. You got some power. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, I mean I think these things here have the respect. Now I'm gonna tell you this: nature has respect. Okay, a lot of folks tell me from their stories and encounters, whenever one of these things show up, and it's dead quiet. No frogs, no crickets, no birds, nothing. Everything goes quiet. Maybe because nature, other animals know what this thing is, or they respect it enough to shut up, let him do his deal, and do what he, get through the area. I don't know, but that's my guess. But so they have a yeah, gators, all that would have the same respect. I really believe that. I mean, that's my personal opinion. But something that big, that massive. Oh, I want to tell you this too. I've had people tell me, well, yeah, but when people say they see them and they dart off, you know, where do they go? These things, as powerful as they are and as fast as they move, look, when that critter ran across that 100-yard pasture, we ain't talking about no airborne shuffle, son. We talking about this. This bull he was en route. You hear me? He must have been running 40 miles an hour. Okay, so in that kind of speed and agility, I bet when they hit a tree, they'd be at 50 foot in there in that tree in 3 seconds. And if you're looking on the ground, where'd he go? He's up in the tree looking at you. Um, people, we were short sighted. We think, well, because I seen one and he ran away, I'm going to hunt for him behind the rocks and the other side of the hill. What's to say he didn't crawl up a tree? He's looking down at you. You're looking that you need to look up too, and see. So
Yeah.
I believe that's where they boot off to is up those trees quick. Uh, if you've ever seen a monkey climb a tree, you know how fast a squirrel climbs a tree. He's up there quick. Monkey's same way. They're up there like a bullet. So, uh, yeah, these things. Now, I believe they have an intel. I believe they have an intel. Uh, Part human, maybe part animal. If that's the case, That explains a lot. It explains a lot because that's the perfect creature. If you're an animal that has the speed of a bobcat, of a panther, and a deer, and the agility of that animal, as well as the camouflage ability of that animal, and then have a sense of human intel, that explains a lot why these things are hard to find. It explains a lot why uh, uh, how they can hide so well. They camouflage. Now, in the military, they teach you that camouflage is nothing more than going ahead and blending into your surroundings and breaking up your form. That's what camouflage is. Animals have a natural camo ability. They can be standing a deer or one of these things can be standing in a wood line, and you'd never see them because they stand still. They don't move. I can't tell you how many times squirrel hunt with my partners, looking up in trees, and they walk right by a big old fox squirrel who's sitting on a limb, and they think it's a pine bird. That's the pine. I stand there and look at it for about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden I see that tail flag. Boom! Here comes a nice big old fox squirrel down the tree. Deer the same way. You walk right by a deer because a deer, if an animal's not moving, see, we sense movement. We sense movement. All right. In the military, we use ghillie suits. All right. Combat missions, that kind of thing. Okay. You're out there in a ghillie suit is only as good as still as a soldier is. So, in other words, you're right laying out there in the grass. Enemy's not going to see you until you move. Once you move, no matter how good of that camo is, once you move, your form now is known. You don't got compromised, and that's what happens. These animals know how to freeze frame, so we can't see them until they move. Walk right by them if they're standing still. And
That
I
makes a
being
lot
like
of sense
having
to
it.
me. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
was gonna say
it's
it
just
does. I was gonna say it seems like
sorry.
every time I talk to someone, either they vanished in the thin air, or they appeared to vanish in the thin air, or in my case, when my friend and I saw one, scared the hell out of us, we took off running the other direction. And as long as it wasn't coming after us, we didn't give a shit where it was going. But
Oh, I hear you. Oh, yeah,
yeah, it
that's
seems like
it.
there's always a and lately it seems like there's a pull to the supernatural side of the portal side. Personally, I'm more of the biological thinker myself, and I could be completely
Mhm.
wrong on this, but I agree with you. I think it's more of a simple ability and understanding of their surroundings, how to blend into their surroundings, and I think, and especially as a soldier, if you go into someone else's homeland to fight, they know it better than you ever will, and there's nothing that can change that. And the woods is their homeland. We're part of a community. We're part of a civilization. We'll never understand the wilderness the way that they do. You know.
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. And I agree. And it's so true. And I think the reason, my personal belief, again, my personal opinion, I can be 100% wrong. I'm just mentioning my opinion here. Why there's so many sightings recently over the last few years or so, 10 years, is because the clear cutting going on across the country. Woodcutters getting out there, these pulp cutters getting out there, and they're going through there and just clearing out hundreds of acres. Now, you know, 100 years ago, a team of fellers getting out there with handsaws, it'd take them about 6 months to clear out 20 acres. Today, they have all this modern technology, snips, and all these different equipment and skidders. They can go ahead and clear 1,000 acres in a matter of a month. So, but their ability to camo and hide is and camo, just it is amazing. Now, I believe they have some human intel. They can tell what a trail cam is and avoid them. I believe that. I do. Oh, I want to tell you this real quick. I just popped in my head. Remember I mentioned to you about Granny saying the creature had big red eyes. They
I
looked
do,
at her through
yes.
the window. Okay. Here a few years ago, my wife and me were sitting in the living room and we were watching to the Discovery Channel. And there was an expedition. They were sending scientists down these little mini subs, and they were going down about 10, 12,000 feet in the ocean. And of course, it's pitch black down there. And they were looking at different sea life down there, what existed. And they come across these fish, and they were kind of clear looking, kind of like a barracuda, clear barracuda. If that I can say that, but they come up, the sub come up behind it, and through the darkness in front of these fish was like red beams coming out of their eyes through the darkness. And as the sub got in front of the fish, their eyes were glowing red, like tail lights. And I told my wife, I said, hey, that's like what Granny said about red tail lights, So this big light bulb, bing, popped on there. And I said, now I understand what she was talking about. Well, the commentator had said these creatures had developed uh, IR, infrared ability, so to speak, to go ahead and be able
Okay.
to see in the dark, find food, find shelter, what have you. That was their natural IR. And then he went on to say, he said, if sea-based creatures can develop this ability, what's to say that land-based creatures can't? And then there you go. Maybe that explained why these creatures have red eyes. Maybe they have black eyes during the day. At nighttime, they go glow red as an IR to see in the darkness. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Again, speculation. I'm not saying that's fact.
It,
I'm
it's
just,
an interesting hypothesis, though. Yeah.
so, it is, but it's as I go ahead and research, these things, and it makes you really wonder. I mean, it really does. Now I sit up my front porch in the morning time. I get up at 0 dark 30, old military term. I get out there and have my coffee out there in the dark, and uh, I mean, now never seen one out here. I never have. Uh, and people ask me all the time, well, you seen that one in Arkansas? Yeah, but I haven't seen one out here in the woods in Louisiana. I'm not that doesn't mean they don't exist out here. It just means I have not seen one personally. But I'm sure I know people who have, so they are out here. But I just haven't seen one out here. Um, not really wanting to. We don't want to see another one. But you know, uh, that was just no. If I could relay to you that night as a 19-year-old soldier, believing firmly in my soul, if you can't see it, touch it, smell it, or feel it, it doesn't exist. And then all of a sudden, this thing jumps into my world, right in my face. It cracked the vase, so to speak, and split it wide open of reality for me and said, your reality is not real. This is reality. So it kind of puts the ice cream on the cake or the cherry on the cake, what you just said here earlier about there's other things too that exist in our world, which I do believe. If this is here, it leaves it wide open. What
So,
else exists that we're being told doesn't exist? My goodness, a few years ago, the U.S. military and U.S. government came out with illicit proof of UFOs. From the Tic Tac video, they came out and said, "We don't know what this technology is. We have no idea, but it's here, and there it is, right there, and the whole world watch this." So they're starting to come forward now and come out with little tidbits of what exists. And
so do you think that
process there.
Bigfoot is any type of an alien, or you think he's a natural creature?
My personal belief, honestly, again, I'm just speculating here. I could be 100% wrong, don't know. My personal belief is they're just a flesh and blood creature. That they're a creature that just has evaded has the ability to aid, you know, history book and whatever. For whatever reason, the missing link, whatever you want to call them, I mean, I believe they're flesh and blood. I really do. Now, I've heard people say they could be from other dimensions. They could be other planets. I don't. It could be. That could be. I don't know. What's right? What's wrong? I don't know. It's
Yeah,
still,
no, I
to
I agree.
me,
There's
it's
any number of
a
possibilities.
fascinating subject. Yeah,
So
yeah.
the night
And so,
you encountered that one, do you think if it
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
hurt you guys, when you had your encounter in Arkansas, based on how you've described this creature, it sounds like if it wanted to hurt you, it could have. Right? It probably would have won. It probably
Oh,
could have
I'm gonna
taken
tell
all of
you
you
right
guys
now,
out.
it tore us in pieces like a rag doll.
So
Oh,
and that
easy.
goes back to what
Let
you
me
were
tell you
saying
what. As
about it
fast as that
being.
thing moved, say again.
I was gonna say the way you
Oh, I
described
lost you
it, it
again.
seems like
Say it again.
I was gonna say the way that you described it and how it moved and its strength, it sounds like if it wanted to, it could have taken all of you guys out, which goes back to your comment about it having almost a human-like intelligence. Because I agree. I think it made a decision not to harm you because it didn't view you as
Yeah.
a threat. It was just trying to protect itself. My other question is
Well,
do you think it was
that
alone
that
out there that night?
I I don't know. I'm gonna tell you right now. I don't know. I that's the only one we saw. Was there others out there? Could have been. We didn't see them. This one drew all our attention. Okay. And to go back to the, could it hurt us if it was aggressive? It never made an aggression towards us. When it landed in that pasture and it stood up, its only ambition was to go ahead and run away from us. That's the only reason why we didn't open fire. I had a 12 gauge, he had a 410. If it tried to attack us, even though I know that ammunition wouldn't have done anything against him, I'd have unloaded on him and reloaded it on him again. But if I'm gonna go out, I'm going out fighting. But thing about it is as big as that thing was, all right, that 12 gauge double aught butt against something that big and massive, like shooting a 400-pound hog with a BB gun. It wouldn't have done a thing. Just piss him off, and we would have been toast then. So yeah, but I think it was as scared of us as we were scared of it. And like I told you earlier in the story, I believe the reason why it broke through that cattle gate, my personal belief, is because it was a sign. Don't follow me. Do not follow me. So we respected that.
So when you said the roar was so loud that
That's
you felt it in your chest,
that's the cherry on the cake. Yeah.
I was gonna say the
But
the roar that thing let
um,
out. Do you think?
I oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I say that the roar
You're
that you
breaking
let
up a little
out.
bit
You said
again.
the roar that it let out when it growled. You said that you felt it in your chest.
You
Did
there?
you? Yeah, I'm here. Can you
I
hear
might
me?
have lost you.
So with the roar, when you said you felt it, did you physically feel it, or was it just so loud that it's kind of like gave you the goosebumps?
It gave me the goosebumps. That was a roar I never heard before. I mean, especially when it ended, the guttural roar of that thing like a lion. I mean, it bellowed through the woods, loud. It's like that thing had lungs the size of gunny sacks. I mean, it just, my goodness. I can't describe how it made me feel. I mean, it was the loudest thing I ever heard. Um, the only way I can describe that, to put it in a perspective, is I know in the military we go to tank gunnery. in a tank gunnery, we'd stand beside his 72-ton pigs, and we called them M16A1 tanks. And when they went off, it would just it would rattle through your soul. That's how that did. Exactly. So,
Okay.
yeah, it got my attention.
So
It
the
did
night
that.
that you saw it,
But
how was had it rained recently? Was the ground wet? Was it dry?
we're breaking up again. Can you say that again, please?
Yeah. The night when you saw it, had it rained recently? Was the ground wet? Was it dry? Was it just a little in between?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was wet. It was wet. It was easy to
Okay.
go ahead and follow those tracks across that pasture. Yeah, so it was wet. And it was hot. It was very, very warm. Uh, but it was a very, very, I mean, very bright night. And that was unusual bright because that kind of brightness is almost eerie. We get it out here every once in a while, and you can just sit on the front porch, and literally it's like daylight. And here it is, and so I remember that so well, how beautiful it was, and the cattle, you can see them, you can see everything. I mean, it was just lit up, and so that was a very unique evening. And it's funny you asked earlier about, do you think that thing was alone? We didn't see any others around it. Now, does that mean they weren't out there? I don't know. I'm not. I hate saying yes to something that I don't know. I'm not sure of. So I don't know if it was alone or had others with it. Sometimes they are. I hear people say they're hiding out there, with the family of them or something. I don't know. Or this thing was just passing through. I don't know. But by itself. But they're uh, a very, very intelligent creature. They know about their whereabouts, where they're going, what they're doing, and how to evade trouble. And definitely how to evade human beings. Um, we are, human beings. We can't blame other creatures and beings and this and that and everything else for being scared of us because uh, we're violent. We are. We're very, very violent. If we don't understand something, we want to kill it. So uh, that's my
So let
synopsis
me
on
ask
that
you that.
part.
Oh no. So let me ask you this: it was looking through the kitchen window, and it wasn't the first time. When you guys were up all night drinking coffee and talking, did anyone ever say why they think it was so curious? Why was it around where it seemed like everybody knew the grandmother had seen it, maybe everybody had seen it themselves?
But
Why do you think it was so curious about the house, or was it the cattle? What do you think drew it in
well,
there?
it according to what they told me, it never killed any of the animals, any of the livestock over there on the farm. Uh, but Bobby Ray did say he didn't mention that he thought it was curious about his mama's cooking, about Granny's cooking, and that's why I would go looking in the kitchen window at her. And from what I understood, she was the only one that it was looking at. So I take it was her cooking that drawed it.
Ah,
That perhaps went ahead and got it curious. So
interesting. You may not recall, but do you remember what she was cooking that night when it was peeking in the kitchen?
no, no,
What may have
yeah,
attracted it?
I can tell you exactly what it was. It was fried chicken. It was mashed potatoes and it was homemade gravy, and it had we also had what do you call it? I haven't had it in years. Um, Okra, fried okra. My goodness, that was good. And when she fried okra, it was crispy. Now, I don't know if you ever eat fried okra before, but some people make it where it's still kind of slimy and stuff. She made it crispy and she seasoned it just right. I mean, it was amazing. That was a meal in itself, just the okra. I mean, that was great. But yeah, fried chicken, taters, gravy, and that okra. That was just and of course biscuits. She made these big, huge biscuits. So yeah. When I went up there, of course, never told my girlfriend this, but when I went up there, it was more. I don't know if it was more to see her or go ahead and eat Granny's cooking. So, you know, never told her that.
We
But
won't tell her.
there you
So
go.
how far if did that smell stretch? Because they were on a 250-acre farm.
Oh
So
yeah.
if she's cooking with the windows open, how far would that smell have gotten? Or was
Oh, you
this thing
smell it.
hanging close to the house in general?
I think it was a little of both. You can smell her cooking. I mean, that old farmhouse had holes all in it. I mean, it was old, so nothing was. The doors had, they were off the hinges, less far, and I mean, it was just that smell would get out there, and you can smell that cooking through the whole house. And outside, my goodness, you smell it out there good. So yeah, I mean, and I'm gonna tell you what, that fried okra when she seasoned that, my goodness, it was good. The fried chicken was amazing too. I mean, all that because being a soldier, eating in the mess hall, you don't get that kind of food. I mean, anyone you talk to, any soldier who's in the army, I'm going to tell you, man, you go in the mess hall over there. We used to use biscuits right there for skeet shoots. you can, man, and when we were out there in the field or in a combat situation, you had C rations. You didn't even have MREs. They had, we had C rats back then, and there was a little box, and it came in these little cans, and a P-38 you used to open them up, and any military fellers, soldiers out there, being Army, Marines, Navy, whatever, they know what I'm talking about. We've all eaten them back in the 70s and such, and before in the 60s. And that P-38, boy, you go ahead and you open that can up, that's get after it. Now, some of them I wouldn't use for a catfish bait, but I mean, you know, uh, but it was good. And we used to heat them up out there in the woods. We go ahead and heat them up with C4. And the new recruits would, look at us. We get a cube of C4 and we'd light it, and all it do is crackle. Because C4, it doesn't detonate unless you go ahead only on impact. But heat resistant. You go ahead and light it; it'll just crackle and stuff. You go ahead and put it down there between two rocks, and go ahead and put your can of sea rations on that and cook it up. They go, "Oh my God, we're gonna blow up!" No, just don't drop it. But no, I mean, so it was to have that kind of dinner. My goodness, that kind of meal for me was a big giant treat. Because of course in the military I wasn't married, so I was single, so
Yeah.
it was a big time for me. Yeah, but
So when the can you give me a little bit of detail on the farm? It's 250 acres. Is it mostly
well,
fields? Is there a lot of woods? Is there a
it was
stream, river, lake on it,
there was
pond?
a river went back to the back end of the farm. There's a river. Okay, I mentioned earlier that we had built a fence, dividing fence from the original pasture from the 50-acre swamp. And that 50-acre swamp was boggy and bad. Now there were some other swampy areas around it, but nothing like that. Okay, you had the pasture where the cattle were, and behind that there was another fence, and then there was another pasture back there, and that was his garden area. That's where they planted all their garden vegetables, and they would take those and they would truck them over to Camden, and they'd sell them over there. That was their livelihood. That was their business. What they did. And so then the rest of the farm was woods. There was like a big old pond on the other side now where that creature had run through the cattle gate and he roared. That one he broke. Okay, he went on into what was called it was what do you call it, a big old sawtooth briars, a big thicket of sawtooth briars. And after you went through that, then you went on into the river where the river was tied in there. There's a big pond over there, and there was a bunch of woods and a lot of thick woods over there. So I think, and after that was probably a mile down through there was the next house like that. So it was spread out in different sections like that. So you had the pasture, you had the garden, you had the swamp, the main swamp, then you had the river, you had the pond over it. I call it a lake because it was actually a really big pond or a small lake. Then you had the wooded area back there that went ahead and went on forever. And that went on to next house down the road. So it was a good spread,
So,
real good spread.
is it when it let that roar out? Was it facing you guys? Do you know, or was it
No,
facing
no.
just
We
facing the
watched it
woods?
run across it. Yeah, we watched it run across the pasture. Ran across the pasture away from us. It crashed through the cattle gate. It crashed through the cattle gate, running away from us. It roared then. So it roared, leading us. And that's why I feel that roar, well, it could have been when it crashed the cattle gate. Maybe it hurt. I don't know. Or I feel the roar was to go ahead and let us know, don't follow him. Don't follow him. You know, it was a warning.
Well,
I I feel.
that makes
So,
a lot of sense. But I also wonder, especially if it's facing the woods,
mhm,
if it was to let maybe who or whatever else was out there that there's somebody's
could be.
coming, and it was telling them to make scarce. He was on his way and he's bringing company. If that was some kind of a warning for these other creatures, because I wonder if they were
Very
seeing the
possible.
same creature at the house or if they were seeing different ones that are curious.
That's another good question right there because when Granny said she's seen it before, several times before, was it the same creature or another one? Uh, that's a $1 million question. I don't know. Now, a lot of people I talk to that tell me they've seen these creatures and everything mention that they've seen them in families or two or three traveling together. Very possible. I don't know. All I know is the night we saw that one, it was by itself that we knew. I mean, I couldn't swear to it. Maybe there was some other ones out there. I don't know. Our attention was on him. We were looking everywhere else. So I don't know. You know, I just knew when he ran from us, my whole obligation, my whole mindset was to make sure he kept on going. Because uh, he came at us, it would have been over with. I mean, I'm a firm believer it had been over for both of us. And if he was aggressive, uh, thank God they're not aggressive, or at least what I understand. I mean, are there aggressive ones out there? I imagine if they're like us, you have a good feller here, a good feller here, an aggressive feller here. So maybe they have their own personalities. I don't know. I don't know, but
Yeah, their own traditions, own personalities. They could very well have their own culture because, especially the way you're describing this one, almost like as you said from the military's perspective, like it had a plan. It was
right.
intentionally leading you a certain direction and knew what it was doing. It
Mhm.
wasn't just responding or reacting. It was in fact acting on a predetermined plan if you got caught.
Right.
Um, the other question, when you mentioned that they had a garden, did were there ever any noticeable like large chunks of a certain something that was planted missing? Was there ever a lot of fruit or vegetables that were just gone that seemed
Um,
unusual, or was that not something they would have talked about? Maybe.
that I never noticed anything. I've been over in the garden a few times, but I never noticed myself. If I did, it probably would. I wasn't curious about it at all. Maybe something they went ahead and dug up, but no, they never mentioned anything about that. He was very explicit when he told me. He said this thing never come around, destroyed anything on their property except for that cattle gate that night. So that was the only thing. So I take it, that nothing else was damaged. Again,
Yeah.
speculation. I don't know, but
Well,
uh,
yeah, I wasn't sure because the way the night you guys saw it, he seemed like he was very clear that no one was talking about this and he wasn't about to share any information that he knew, whether
yeah,
he'd
oh
seen one
yeah,
before.
they wanted to, keep it. Like I said, he didn't tell me anything. No one told me a thing after she saw it in the kitchen and we were going out back. I even asked him. I said, I wish you'd have told me what we were going after. He even told me. He said, "Well, would you come out the house if I told you?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "But I like to be prepared what I'm going after. I'm thinking it's an intruder." But
So
I
he knew
think
what it was.
he knew what it was. Yeah, he
He
said
knew.
it come
Oh,
around a few
okay,
times.
that's interesting.
Yeah, he knew
So
what it
yeah,
was
I
because
was kind of thinking that he wasn't sure either. Maybe it wasn't sure, but that doesn't sound like the case. He knew exactly what you
no,
guys were doing.
they knew. He knew what it was, and that's why I was kind of upset he didn't let me on what was going we were going after. Now he didn't see it like Granny did. And the way
Yeah.
I understand it, again, I'm just again speculation, but the way I understand it is the night him and me saw it together was the first time he ever saw it that close. So I mean,
Okay.
uh, but as uh, as worried as he was about how to protect his family, how to protect his home from whatever this thing is, and that's when I asked him, I said, "Did it ever break in?" He said, "No, it never tried to break in, never tried to attack anybody, and never destroyed anything other than that cattle gate this night. That was it." So evidently, it wasn't an aggressive creature. It wasn't coming to hurt nobody. It wasn't coming to destroy anything. Uh, that would have changed. I really firmly believe that would have changed if we opened fire. If we'd have fired our weapons at him, that'd have changed. I believe he'd become aggressive. Um,
Don't blame him. Yeah, I can
so
see that.
I mean, and like I said, I wish I can relay to you when he jumped that fence and right in front of us in that pasture, what was going through my mind. I wish I can relay that to you. Do you understand? Uh, it rattled me to the soul. It literally rattled my soul because I didn't believe these things existed. I didn't believe anything like this ever could exist. So my mind was trying to rationalize it and say it's a bear. As soon as I said that to my, no grizzly bears in Arkansas, and bears don't have broad shoulders. They can't run like a man on 2 feet. Uh, they don't have big hands. I mean, so uh, and and they have a snout. This thing had no snout. So, um, what was it? That's the big question right there. What are these things? People call them Bigfoot. They call them Sasquatch. I don't know what they are. I really don't know. I'm curious. I'm very curious, and over the years, have been very curious. Um, when uh, I talked to people like over at the Bigfoot convention over in Natchitoches last year, and talking to people about their encounters and what they've seen, um, and they would see them on a regular basis, and some of them did see 2 and 3 at a time. You know, I I just don't know enough about them to go ahead and really make a statement on what they are and where they're from or anything else. I being how I am, I like to say, okay, if I have this right here and I have it in a box and it's concrete and it's real and I can say this is what this is, then I can comment on it. If I don't understand it, I don't want to comment on it because of the fact I don't want to mislead anybody,
Sure.
and I don't want to mislead anybody or say, well, this is what this is when it's not, it's something else. I don't know. I just know it's something I never seen before, never want to see again, so, uh, but
So
related to something now,
I
yeah,
say, did your girlfriend ever say anything about it? What did she think about this whole thing?
never mentioned a word. Afterwards, after that night, yeah, it scared her, but her and her family they're very strong Pentecostal people. Um, to tell you the truth, the granny, um, she kind of was leaning towards the way of a demonic entity because being Pentecostal, they believed in it being maybe a demon or something. Um, I personally don't believe it was a spirit. I believe it was a creature, flesh and blood. Um, but in religion, be it Pentecostal or Baptist or Methodist, whatever, they seem sometimes want to go ahead, if they don't understand something, then they want to call it demonic. I don't want to be so fast as to go ahead and call one of God's creations demonic unless I know for sure what it is. So
that that makes sense. I'm surprised that she got away with. I would have had so many questions. I wouldn't have been able to stop myself. I would have been asking her all sorts of questions.
Well, I was so, my mind was so burnt, and I was still trying to pinch myself, trying to figure out, did I see what I really saw? I mean, the shock of seeing this thing, and like I say, if it had been today, like right now, today, you and me out there and we see this thing with all the time, it'd have been a shock, but not like it was back then. Because back then it wasn't talked about. Back then, no one said Bigfoot. No one said Sasquatch. Those words didn't even exist back then. The few people that saw this and that, everyone just shrugged it off. Said, "Yeah, right, whatever." But there wasn't that many sightings back then at all. So I wasn't prepped, that mentally prepped to see what I saw that night. If that makes sense to you.
That makes a lot of sense.
It was in my face as a 19-year-old soldier, never believing these things existed, not knowing what it was, and being that close to it. It was, here I've been, I thought I was prepared and trained for everything. I mean, I went to 11 Bravo in the military. 11 Bravo is MOS, infantry. I went to basic over at Fort Benning, Georgia. I went to jump school at Fort Bragg, the 507th. I went ahead and came back to Benning, went ahead and went to Ranger School, graduated Ranger School, went ahead and from there was sent to, I was attached to the 1st and 75th. Then I was sent to Panama, went over there to jungle warfare training, came back to Benning again, then eventually got trained, sent over to Fort Polk, Louisiana. They were going ahead and reactivating, first prepared, everything. Evidently I wasn't. I this put I guess the color in the picture, so to speak. But, so
it's definitely.
I mean,
I was going to say it's definitely experiencing humility when you see one of these things for the first time, and you realize that everything you thought you knew is probably wrong, and that there's a whole other side out there, and that you're not alone in the woods anymore. Because I think we, especially as human beings, we often go to the woods thinking, "Oh, we're the top of the food chain. We're carrying a gun. We're invulnerable out here." But that's not really the case. There are things out there that are just as dangerous if we are, if not more, I think.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. When I was a kid growing up, and my daddy, he said, "Son," he said, "You be back here by 10 o'clock at night. Be back. Monsters out there get you. They'll get you. Be back here at 10 o'clock." And I was back at 10 o'clock. I didn't want the monsters to get me. Well, when I was a kid. Well, as I grew up, got older, and I do everything. Ain't no monsters out there. They just told us that to go ahead and get us to come home on time. Well, let me tell you this. After what I saw in Arkansas that June night, 1975, I'm going to tell you this. The monsters is out there. Bubba. Do that right now. They would. They're there, and they're real. That's all I can say. Yeah, buddy.
Okay, excellent. Well, it looks like we're hitting about an hour and 40 minutes here, hour and 35 minutes. So we'll probably wrap things up. Steve, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story with us, your perspective. This was fascinating. There was so much detail. We'd love to have you back sometime and continue to talk. I could go another 4 hours. I have so many questions, but we definitely like to pick your brain more on a different episode. Is anything you want to say before we end it up?
I'd like to just say this real quickly. And the reason I do this is to encourage anybody, any listener out there, if you've had an experience, you've had an encounter, you've held it in for so long, come out with it. Get with my man right here and share it. It's going to help you tremendously. It's a therapy for you to get it off your chest, but people need to hear it. There's more and more stories coming out now. People are starting to come forward, and I just encourage everybody. I'm on a mission to help as many people as possible. That's what I'm doing. So I definitely encourage you to come out.
Definitely. All right, sir. Well, we will drop you backstage. Please hang on, and then we'll wrap everything up here. And people, Steve Kauffman, thank you for coming.